I define social justice in two ways. One is it's the work we do to move toward economic, social, and political equality. But I also view social justice as the totality of that work. It's the education we do in connection with that. It's our advocacy in connection with that, as well as the actions we take. And that gives me the strength when I'm feeling uncertain to keep moving forward. And there's always so many people around me to help. We're not doing any of this alone. We couldn't do any of this alone.
Since I was in 8th grade, actually, has to do with treating every other individual in this world as a human being, an equal human being, and making sure they have access to and opportunities to thrive.
Like probably many of the other nominees, social justice is Tikkun Olam, and it's about repair. But I think that it's about more than that. I think it's what I would call the great equalizer and also a gateway drug. And what I mean by that is that no matter where you are in your Jewish experience, when we come together to do social justice, to do that repair work, we are doing something that is absolutely the most Jewish thing that you can do.
I would say that in terms of my Jewish upbringing, it's hard to disentangle my parents teaching me to stand up for what's right and teaching me Jewish values as two separate things. Whether my parents were conscious they were connected or not. To me, they're definitely connected. I feel that we are commanded to pursue justice. We are commanded to take care of the widow and the orphan, people who can't take care of themselves. And to me, that's an obligation to try to make it so that there aren't these problems anymore.
As the first woman to serve as chair of the WRJ, as the first woman to chair the Reform Pension Board, as the first woman to chair the Association of Reform Zionists of America, or ARDZA. I know how important it is to have women at these tables and how often we are excluded. If we are not in leadership, our views, our perspective, and quite frankly, our ability to get stuff done is not at the table either.
Basically, speaking up for people who aren't in the room, and it's making the world better, particularly the difference of what it meant in the Jewish community for our family is rather huge.
Well, social justice is a very large and wide term, and of course it means different things to different people. But in my view, it represents a statement that all people are equal and should be treated properly, fairly, and equally. And clearly that applies to the Jewish community in this difficult time.
I've always been about the underdog, always. And I remember from when I was a little girl, I used to try and help kids that I didn't feel had what I had. And I just kind of had that spirit with me growing up. And even when my kids were, and they're in their 30s now, but when they were in car seats, my husband and I used to go buy food and always drop it off consistently at the soup kitchen. So that's just been a part of who I am my whole life.
I am a family nurse practitioner, and I am the chief nurse executive at Women's Health Center of Maryland. And I was in North Carolina when they changed the laws there for people seeking abortion and for minors seeking gender-affirming hormone therapy. And I wanted to be a little more involved with that process, and saw this position open up with Women's Health Center. And I thought, wow, how visionary. This a very proactive organization that is going to meet the needs of the community.
I think of social justice in terms of Tikkun Olam and to repair the world, which I think almost every Jewish person would have that lens. But when I think about social justice as part of the rest of the work I do in my community, I think about the people that we're helping that are inside the walls of the community that you represent, but also reaching out and helping people and meeting the needs of the community that's outside the doors of the place that you celebrate.
My social justice journey has had some predictable features and some very unfathomable parts to it. I am a product of the 60s. I grew up in the 50s, which was a very conservative time, particularly in the sense of civil rights and gender roles. But the 60s changed all that and gave me an opportunity to see life through a different lens. I would start with the civil rights movement, which for especially a young person was an encounter with the injustice and the violent racial history of our country, which, while focused on the Black community at the time, as a Jewish person, you couldn't help but respond in a similar way, knowing that when one group is discriminated against, that is not in isolation.
I would say it began when I converted to Judaism. Yeah, it began when I learned about Tikkun Olam, and when I learned that it's a commandment, and I studied all the teachings about social justice. It was also at a time when I was feeling very blessed myself, and I felt that it made sense to me that I would want to give back to those who are less fortunate.